Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating paper that explores a pretty profound technological boundary. Can we actually bridge the gap between artificial intelligence as we know it today and genuine artificial consciousness? I mean, we interact with AI every single day, right? But what happens when we try to make that AI actually care about the outcomes of its actions?
So, let's tackle this massive question right out of the gate. As artificial intelligence gets exponentially better at complex cognitive tasks, reasoning, learning, communicating, can we ever teach a machine to truly feel the weight of its own decisions? Can we take a system that's literally just made of code and data and somehow program a conscience into it? It honestly sounds like pure science fiction, but as you'll see in the research today, scientists are already building the mathematical frameworks to make it a reality.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, the AI consciousness gap. Second, defining artificial consciousness. Third, the CDAI model explained. Fourth, 5 levels of decision. And finally, the future of conscious AI. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The AI consciousness gap. Where AI falls short.
Before we look ahead, we really need to ground ourselves in where our technology actually stands right now. And there is a very sharp contrast here. On the left side, traditional artificial intelligence is absolutely fantastic at logic, massive data processing, executing complex algorithms, and visualization. But it fundamentally lacks the elements you see over on the right side, artificial consciousness. Sure, a modern chatbot can flawlessly simulate a polite conversation, but it's completely missing that internal capacity to evaluate its actions based on empathy or guilt or true ethical judgment. It doesn't actually know right from wrong, it just knows what its training data suggests is the most statistically probable thing to say next.
Section 2. Defining artificial consciousness. What is AC? Okay, so what does it actually take to cross that massive gulf from a highly efficient, smart calculator to a truly conscious, morally responsible entity? According to the research, artificial consciousness isn't just some magical switch you flip on in a machine's code. It's formally defined here as a dynamic process, and this process emerges through the continuous integration of social, ethical, cultural, and emotional parameters. The entire goal of these parameters is to regulate autonomous behavior. So, the researchers don't see consciousness as an out-of-the-box feature. Rather, it's a highly complex system of ethical boundaries that guide responsible decision-making over a sustained period of time.
This quote really hits the nail on the head regarding the paper's core philosophy. Consciousness originates from the accumulation of past experiences, including both mistakes and correct decisions made over time. Think about how we learn as humans, right? You touch a hot stove, you get burned, you remember the pain, and you learn never to do it again. The authors argue that machines, much like living organisms, would need a programmable, structural way to accumulate the weight of their past mistakes and successes. They literally need a history of consequences to learn the difference between right and wrong.
Section 3. The CDA model. Framework explained.
So how on earth do we mathematically build that history of consequences? To solve this, the author introduces a total game changer of a framework designed to structurally program this exact accumulation of experience. It's called the CDI model, or the Consciousness Development and Artificial Intelligence Decisions model. Now, the original paper gets into some incredibly dense Wolfram Mathematica code to prove this concept out, but don't worry, we are going to skip the raw math today and look at this model visually to understand exactly how it functions.
Think of this model almost like the building blocks of a living creature. What you're looking at here is a framework of what the author calls autonomous decision disks. These nested disks aggregate data to form a cohesive ethical mind. Just like individual cells form tissue, tissues form organs, and organs form a whole body, these disks literally stack inside each other. They take tiny individual variables and continually aggregate them up into a much larger consciousness.
Section 4. 5 levels of decision. Building the model.
Let's see how this actually scales up from the absolute tiniest variables all the way up to a massive final ethical choice. The CDIA model scales up in 5 very specific hierarchical steps. It starts at step 1, the nano-autonomous level. Then it moves up to step 2, micro-autonomous. Step 3, subautonomous. Step 4, general autonomous, until it finally reaches step 5, the final autonomous decision. This strict, layered hierarchy is basically the secret sauce for how the AI processes moral complexity without just totally crashing from data overload.
Starting at the absolute bottom, take a close look at this green nano disk diagram. This is the foundation.
At this nano level, individual variables, which could be tiny pieces of ethical, social, or emotional data, are plotted around a 360-degree axis. Imagine dozens of data points, constantly shifting around in space based on new inputs from the environment. All these shifting points are then calculated together to find a single, central value. This value represents the machine's experience at the most microscopic, granular level possible.
And that brings us to the absolute core of how this whole thing works, the arithmetic mean. Every single disk, at every single one of those 5 levels, generates an arithmetic mean. The nanodisk calculates its mean, and then that single number gets passed up to become just one variable in the larger microdisk. The microdisk then calculates its own mean, which gets passed up to the subdisk, and so on. This arithmetic mean acts as a mathematical anchor. It allows the AI's experiences to compound hierarchically, successfully carrying the weight of thousands of tiny ethical variables right up the chain into the next larger decision-making sphere.
This structure perfectly captures a kind of butterfly effect within the AI model. If you look at those red lines connecting the center points of the various disks, you can see how everything is aggregated upward. Because of this, any slight change in one tiny, remote nanovariable at the very bottom can instantly ripple outward. It travels through all those red connection lines to alter the ultimate, final autonomous decision at the very top. It creates this highly sensitive, deeply interconnected web of artificial thought. It's honestly a lot like a human nervous system reacting to a single pinprick. Section 5, the future of conscious AI. What comes next? All right, having mapped the anatomy of an artificial moral decision out, what's the actual takeaway for the tech we rely on daily? First, we have to stay grounded in our current limitations. Yes, today's AI successfully simulates ethical reasoning, and it uses large-scale data to mimic socially acceptable behavior incredibly well. But we know it fundamentally lacks genuine moral awareness. It cannot truly experience empathy or subjective responsibility. We really have to remember that, while today's chatbots might simulate polite behavior flawlessly, they're merely running algorithms, completely blind to genuine moral consequence.
So why does mapping this all out even matter right now? Well, because AI today is often a massive black box. We don't always know exactly how it arrived at a conclusion. The ultimate takeaway here is that while true artificial consciousness is still theoretical, the CDI model finally gives us a transparent, measurable blueprint. This multidimensional framework allows us to visually and mathematically map out exactly how an AI makes an ethical choice. It gives us a structured way we might actually build and, crucially, safely monitor an ethical machine in the future.
And that leaves us with a deeply profound, honestly, kind of unsettling thought to end on. If we successfully use transparent frameworks like the CDAI model to program a true accumulated conscience into our AI, when machines finally learn right from wrong, how will these newly self-aware, highly ethical systems judge the humanity that created them? It's a fascinating question for the future of our digital world. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the data.